In today's video, 3 charts that perfectly explain where we are at within the Toronto real estate market and the GTA real estate market as we slowly, steadily approach the end of 2022. That and much more in today's video. Let's get to it. Hello everyone, this is Sam from SaberiSixRealEstate and Remax Realtron Realty Inc. As always, back with another video for you guys here today. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Sam, a Toronto real estate agent working within the Toronto and GTA areas. As always, you can find my contact information on the screen and in the description box. On this channel, I like to discuss all things Toronto real estate market oriented, market stats, market facts, market trends, buyer advice, seller advice, building reviews, tenancy laws, and area analysis, and so much more. If you find this type of content enjoyable, feel free to subscribe, comment, rate, and review. Or you can find me on TikTok, Instagram as well for different types of short form content that's not repurposed YouTube content. In today's video, I'm going to present you with 3 charts that help us to perfectly understand where we're at within the Toronto real estate market. And here we're talking about Toronto and the GTA. Let's start with this first chart. Here we're taking a look at the sales chart, and it's as of November 2022 because that is the most recent month we have in full. And here we see sales figures contrasted and compared with the preceding last 3 years. So if we're to take a look here, we see that the orange indicates 2022, the blue indicates 2021, and so on and so forth. Green 2020 and the gray 2019. And we see sales insofar as November of 2022 is concerned. In other words, put the number of real estate residential transactions that have occurred within the greater Toronto area. So not just confined to Toronto, but the GTA at large is not only far below last year, 2021, but the last 3 preceding years, 2020 and 2019. Now, this is not only the case for November, but it has been the case ever since really June of 2022, because we see at least during the downturn of the peak market, so not the down market, but when the peak was starting to settle, starting to trend downwards, we see that in April and May the sales figures of 2022 for those given months were higher than 2020. And obviously January and February, where the market was scorching hot, peak market conditions, really the apex of the Toronto and GTA real estate market, where prices were the highest, competition was the highest, and properties were selling $250 to some instances, without exaggeration, $400,000 above asking. We see that sales in those given months were not only higher, were also higher than 2020 and 2019. But simply put, during peak markets, any impediment to sales figures being higher was more directly a result of low inventory as opposed to what's happening now, because during the most recent downturn in the market, really which we can designate starting March, but really they're taking a major swing downwards June and onwards to the point we are at in November. The impediment to sales figures being low is not low inventory, it's actually quite the opposite in some instances. Although that still plays a minor factor, it's mostly just diminished demand. Interest rates have shot up, obviously. A lot of buyers have put off their buying plans for a year. Those who were actively interested, their borrowing powers got significantly limited. And on the supply side of things as well, supply is still diminished because a lot of sellers who are looking at the market take a downward turn are asking themselves, why would I sell right now? Of course, there's going to be inventory, and there is inventory, but the inventory that exists is not top-notch quality for the most part. Now, as we will see when we go through the next chart, listing figures, obviously here ubiquitous with inventory, although low, has held up year over year much better. As a result, here we can conclude that the diminished demand is playing a larger role in the low sales figures we are seeing as of the most recent months. And let's move on to the next chart, shall we? And as I mentioned, it's the listings chart. How many new listings have come onto the market in this given month as compared to the last 3 preceding years? And unlike the sales chart, we see that listing figures have held up much better when compared to the last 3 preceding years. years. Of course, as of November 2022, the amount of new inventory coming onto the market, new homes for sale, whether it's detached in Richmond Hill, a condo in Southern Etobicoke, or a townhome in Whitby, for the most part, new inventory has held up pretty even with the last 3 preceding years, if not more than 2019 in the case of November, as we see here. In the case of October, September, of course, listings are still lower than the last 3 preceding years. Once again, this has to do with the aforementioned diminished supply due to sellers really, saying, why would I sell right now? Market's on the downturn. I don't need to sell. Nonetheless, when we compare it to the sales figures and sales charts, the gap between October, September is far, far lower versus the last 3 preceding years for new listings, as opposed to the gap between October and September versus the last 3 preceding years for sales. That gap is much larger in the case of the sales chart. So once again, indicating to me that there is a diminished demand and diminished supply as a result of the interest rates at play here, which is leading to the overall cooling market conditions that we're dealing with within the Toronto and GTA real estate market. But what's carrying most of the weight here is more so the diminished demand as opposed to the diminished supply. And most individuals' hopes are, those who are trying to perfectly time the market bears, if you will, their hopes are that there will be record delinquencies, mortgage payment defaults, and more listings flooding the market into 2023, leading these inventory figures to increase substantially. I am of the opinion that inventory figures will surely increase in 2023, Q1 and Q2 of 2023. I do not believe it will be to the extent that a lot of hopeful bears are anticipating. Overall, this is somewhat seasonal in nature. Let's add that as well. Listings always go down towards the end of the year. Sales always go down to the end of the year. But as we clearly see when we compare it to the last 3 preceding months, although it is seasonal, this is an exceptional case, because although listings and sales do dip, they do not dip to this extent, further indicating a special market in terms of the overall cooling market we have at hand, which in a lot of ways is a buyer's market. Unfortunately, a lot of buyers dependent on significant financing cannot take advantage of this buyer's market. Now let's move on to the last chart, and really the most interesting chart to me, because you will see a breakaway point with regards to the average monthly prices, and it's the same type of concept compared to the last 3 previous years. And we see really how hot the market was early in 2022, where the peak price was in February around, in terms of average sold price across the areas, where the average sold price across all GTA areas was substantially higher than what we're looking at now, and also substantially for February higher than the year over year or the last 2 years or the last 3-year comparison. But the average price and prices overall are kind of a delayed indicator of where the market is at. Not to say that prices don't shift, they certainly do shift. But as you guys can see, year over year, prices were still higher than the last 3 years, really up until August of 2022. This is all while the previous 2 charts will indicate to us that sales were lower and listings were lower. When prices really started to dip on a year over year basis, because on a month over month basis, they were pretty consistent, right? As you guys can see, February to June was a big drop, but really June to September, even to the point of November, where we're at, prices on an average, once again, basis across all property types are pretty even. Now, in my most recent videos, one of my most recent videos, I broke down prices by property type, and obviously certain property types are down more than others. The video before that, I broke down Toronto condo prices by area. Some areas are down 20%, some areas are only down 9%. So there's a lot of variety. This is a very general category, but insofar as we're taking a look at this general category, we see that really from April to November, prices are pretty consistent. We really see that from June to November, really prices are still a little bit down, but pretty even. But in September, that's where it takes a shift on the year-over-year analysis, where prices start to drop on a year-over-year basis. And for December, as we can see, we don't have the full data, but I would anticipate that December, in terms of the 2022 average sold price across the GTA real estate market, will be in similar fashion as November, October, and September, lower than 2021. Now that we have seen prices drop year over year since September, right? The really interesting question is not if prices are going to drop year over year, because we obviously just saw that. If prices are going to drop to 2020 levels, not 2021. And I don't see that happening. Now, maybe I'm way out of line in that prediction. Maybe that is going to happen. But I just certainly do not believe that we're going to get to a point where we're going to see 2020 prices on an average basis across all areas, right? Certainly there are properties that have sold for less they have sold in 2020. I've seen those screenshots myself. If you have any interest in the Toronto real estate market, by chance you ever go on Reddit or Twitter, you'll always see screenshots of properties selling for far less than they were purchased for, because that's what people like to screenshot and share the most, because that's what gets the most amount of traction. I don't blame people for doing that. Nonetheless, but on an average basis, I have a very difficult time believing that we're going to reach 2020 levels. Anyways, that's it for today's video. Let me know if you have any further questions with regards to topics covered in this video or topics covered in other videos. And also let me know if you believe we're ever going to reach 2020 levels with regards to average sold prices. As always, this is Sam from SaberiSixRealEstate and Remax Realtron Realty Inc. I have a very cool video that I'm working on that's going to be coming out soon. It's going to be 9 to 10 condos within the city of Toronto that I believe are cheap and affordable, but quality, right? There's a distinction to be made, because a lot of cheap and affordable condo buildings are trash. These are cheap, affordable, but actually quality condos. And I'm working hard on that list. So keep an eye out for that video. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. Stay safe and stay tuned. Thank you.